Let's go out now to Herb, listening in Manassas, Virginia. Hey, Herb, how are you?
Good, good. How you doing, Andrew?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just calling in reference to the young man that called in earlier about the lustful thoughts.
Uh huh.
And I was just wondering if it might be helpful to let him know that, according to the Bible, that anytime we have lustful thoughts like that, Jesus says that we've already committed adultery. So could you reference like Matthew 5:28 for me and discuss that for that man's benefit?
Sure, I will. Happy to. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm not sure exactly how that would help this guy, except just make him feel worse, and I don't want to send him a mixed message. Why would I tell him that having a lustful thought is adultery if the quote lustful thought is about his own wife and being attracted to her? So his issue right now is understanding and enjoying the natural process of sex between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. You may not understand what he's struggling with yet, Herb, but I mean, he is feeling guilty for having intercourse with his own wife. And so that was the question at hand, and that's why the advice I gave him was not focused on some sort of guilt or condemnation or adultery language, but instead emphasizing that God created sex for the context of marriage, and that was what he was desiring. He wanted to be able to enjoy the marriage relationship and enjoy having sex with his wife in the context of marriage as God intended. So that's why my advice was geared that way. As far as Matthew 5 goes, yeah, I mean, we could pull out Matthew 5 and tell all the men out there, all the women out there who are listening right now, that every lustful thought is the same as adultery. And then we could continue with Matthew 5. We could tell them to chop off their hands. We could tell them to pluck out their eyes because they're causing them to sin. We could tell them to try to be perfect like God is perfect. We could tell them to make sure they're getting right with their brother and sister before they do their animal sacrifices on the altar. And we could tell them that if they don't follow these instructions, they may appear before the Sanhedrin. But then we might want to stop, pause for a minute, and question ourselves. Wait a minute, what's the context of this? Sanhedrin? I haven't seen any Sanhedrin lately. Have you? Animal sacrifices, getting right with my brother before animal sacrifice. I don't even do animal sacrifices. I'm not sacrificing some animal in my backyard these days. Jesus is my sacrifice. And so when we realize what Matthew 5 is really intended to do, it begins in verse 17. It's all about the law. It's saying you want to see the true spirit of the law. You want to see what adultery really looks like under the law. Every thought, every lustful thought, you're condemned. Every murderous thought, you're condemned. Every angry thought, you're condemned. Every time you give an animal sacrifice and your heart isn't right, you're condemned. Every time somebody asks you for money and you don't give them everything you have without question, you're condemned. This condemnation is the true spirit of law living. So no, no, I will not. I will not use Matthew 5 to make a man feel guilty about having relations with his own wife. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's out of context. I think it is the spirit of the law which was intended to kill every single hearer. It condemned them, and therefore they saw their need for God's grace. We can't try through human effort to be perfect like God is perfect, but through God's grace, He makes us perfect. By one offering, He has made us perfect forever. Do you see that? So Matthew 5 in its true context there, beginning in verse 17, continued to verse 48, is the true spirit of the law. It is a perfect and impossible, did you hear that? Impossible standard. It is designed to kill so that then we see our need for salvation by grace alone. Now, if someone's struggling with lust of other people, if they're struggling with an addictive lust that's not just a natural desire for their own spouse, then by all means, I would have advised that way. But that's not the way I advised, because the man who called in was wanting to have relations with his own wife without struggling with guilt about it. I hope that helps, Herb. That's my viewpoint on it. Appreciate you calling in.